When I burst into the office of my cheating wife's lover, my fist smashed into his nose in a fit of uncontrolled rage. That bastard flew over the desk, his head slamming against the wall with a sickening crack. The sound echoed like a warning shot, reverberating through the sterile corporate space. His papers scattered across the room like fallen soldiers. It took him a moment to gather himself, groaning as he clutched his face. Blood streamed between his fingers. I didn't care. My hands trembled, but not from fear. This was years of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak boiling over. I grabbed him by the throat, pulling him up like he weighed nothing. His panicked eyes met mine, and I hissed through clenched teeth, "What you did hurt me, not just because you stole my wife. You stole 13 years of friendship and 10 years of my marriage." His mouth moved, maybe trying to plead or explain, but I squeezed harder. My voice cracked as I spat the words, "You'll pay for this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will happen." The office door flew open, and 2 security guards lunged at me. Their hands yanked at my arms, pulling me back, but I refused to let go at first. One guard twisted my wrist sharply, forcing me to release my grip. The bastard collapsed onto the floor, coughing and gasping for air like the weak coward he was. One of the guards barked, "Sir, that's enough. We're calling the cops." I didn't care. Let them call whoever they wanted. The damage had been done, and not just to his bleeding nose. I glared at him one last time, my chest heaving as my breath came out in ragged bursts. His pathetic attempts to collect himself only fueled my hatred. "You'll see," I said quietly, a promise that hung heavy in the air. They dragged me out, but even as I was marched through the office hallway, my rage didn't cool. Every pair of wide-eyed employees watching the scene play out felt like a judgmental glare, whispering, "How did it come to this?" I'll tell you how it came to this. It started weeks ago, with small things I didn't notice, or refused to notice. I didn't set out that evening to become the man who would unravel his own life. I had no grand suspicions, no gut instincts pointing me toward disaster. Emily was working late again, and I was just killing time at home. Maybe I'd cook something, I thought, or catch up on a show we'd been watching together. I still thought of us as we back then. Then it happened, the moment that changed everything. Her laptop, the one she was always so possessive about lately, chimed with a notification. The sound was innocuous enough, but it cut through the quiet house like a gunshot. I glanced over, expecting some generic work email or a shopping discount she'd forgotten to turn off. Instead, it was an email from Jason. Jason. My best friend of 13 years. Godfather to our daughter. The guy who always had a beer ready when I needed to vent and never missed a chance to grill burgers on Sunday afternoons. He was family, at least, I thought he was. The subject line read, "Missing you already." My stomach dropped. My mind screamed for me to walk away, but my hand moved on its own, clicking the notification. The email unfolded like a dark flower in front of me. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about the way you looked when you walked into that hotel room. Counting down the days until I see you again. Jay." For a moment, I thought I'd misread it. The words blurred, and I read them again, slower this time, as if parsing them differently would make them mean something else. Anything else. The room spun around me. My legs felt like they might give out, so I gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white. Jason. My Jason. And Emily. I could have stopped there. I should have. But something inside me wouldn't let it go. Like a man reaching for a live wire, knowing it would electrocute him, I clicked into her email inbox. My fingers trembled as I scrolled, and my worst fears became reality with every message I read. There were dozens of them, stretching back months. Flirty at first, with subtle innuendos I might have missed if I hadn't known what to look for. Then bolder. Plans to meet. Hotels booked in cities she claimed were work trips. A photograph of the two of them, heads close together, Jason grinning like he'd won the lottery. The final blow came when I opened an email thread from just a week ago. Emily had sent him a photo, a mirror selfie from a hotel bathroom. She was wearing lingerie I'd never seen before, her expression coy, her hair tousled. My Emily. The woman I'd kissed goodbye that morning. The woman I'd trusted with my life. And Jason's reply? Casual, almost smug, God, you're perfect. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget to wear that dress I like. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the sound echoed through the kitchen. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as my heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to throw up, to scream, to smash everything in sight. But most of all, I wanted answers. The hours ticked by in a haze of rage and disbelief. I paced the house like a caged animal, replaying every interaction with Jason and Emily over the past year. All the little moments I'd ignored suddenly seemed glaringly obvious, the way Jason's name came up too often in conversation, the late nights at work, the business trips. I'd been so blind. When Emily finally came home, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the laptop in front of me. She breezed in, all smiles, carrying a bag of takeout. Hey, babe, she chirped, setting the bag on the counter. I got your favorite. Thought we could have a nice. Sit down, I interrupted, my voice sharp and cold. She froze, her smile faltering. What's wrong? Sit, I repeated, pointing to the chair across from me. She hesitated, then sat down, her eyes narrowing as she looked at the laptop. What's this about? She asked, her tone guarded. I opened the email, turning the screen toward her. Her face paled as she read it, but only for a moment. Then she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms and forcing a smirk. So, you went through my emails? That's all you have to say? I growled, my voice shaking. You've been sleeping with Jason. My best friend. Our daughter's godfather. And your first reaction is to deflect? Her smirk faded, replaced by a cold, calculating expression I didn't recognize. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Jason, she said, her voice clipped. But let's not pretend this is all my fault. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Are you serious? You're going to blame me? You've been checked out of this marriage for years, she snapped, her voice rising. You stopped caring about me. About us. Maybe if you'd paid a little more attention, this wouldn't have happened. Her words were like a slap to the face. My fists clenched, and I forced myself to stay seated. Don't you dare try to pin this on me, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You lied to me. To our family. You didn't just cheat, you destroyed everything we built. She rolled her eyes, her expression dripping with contempt. Oh, get over yourself, Ben. You think this marriage was perfect? Newsflash, it wasn't. And maybe Jason gave me something you never could. Something inside me snapped. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. If you think for 1 second I'm going to let you walk away from this unscathed, you're out of your mind. Her smirk returned, cruel and taunting. What are you going to do, Ben? Cry about it? Good luck. I stormed out of the house, my vision red with fury. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning felt surreal. I woke up in the guest room, the sunlight creeping through the blinds and mocking me with its normalcy. It took me a moment to remember why I wasn't in my own bed. Then it all came rushing back, the emails, the confrontation with Jason, Emily's smirk as she dared to blame me for her betrayal. The anger hit me again like a fresh wave, dragging me under. I staggered into the kitchen, half expecting Emily to be gone. But she wasn't. She was there, sipping coffee like it was any other day. Her cool demeanor was a slap in the face. She barely glanced up when I entered. "Morning," she said, her tone flat and disinterested. "You've got some nerve," I muttered, grabbing a mug and slamming it onto the counter. She raised an eyebrow. "Are we really doing this again? I thought you'd gotten all your yelling out last night." "Yelling?" I scoffed. "That wasn't yelling, Emily. That was me holding back. Do you have any idea what you've done?" She sighed dramatically, setting her coffee down. "Yes, Ben. I cheated. Is that what you want to hear? Does saying it out loud make you feel better?" "Better?" I barked, the mug clattering as I set it down too hard. "You think any of this makes me feel better? You destroyed everything, Emily. You didn't just cheat on me, you humiliated me. You ripped apart our family. You—" "Stop," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "I get it. You're hurt. But you act like I'm the only one to blame here." I stared at her, incredulous. "Are you seriously going to keep doing this? You think I am to blame for your affair? For you sneaking around with Jason, of all people? Let's not pretend Jason is the issue," she shot back, her eyes narrowing. "The issue is us. Or rather, the lack of an us. You checked out of this marriage long before Jason ever came into the picture. You stopped caring about me, Ben. About what I needed. And that's your excuse?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the quiet kitchen. "That I didn't meet some imaginary standard, so you had no choice but to cheat?" "It wasn't about standards," she snapped, slamming her cup on the table. "It was about feeling alive. Do you know what it's like to wake up every day next to someone who doesn't see you anymore? Someone who goes through the motions but doesn't actually care?" Her words stung, but not because I believed them. They stung because they were part of the twisted narrative she'd created to justify what she'd done. "You're unbelievable," I muttered, shaking my head. "You could have talked to me. You could have told me how you were feeling. Instead, you decided to burn everything to the ground." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "And what would that have changed, Ben? Would you have suddenly become the husband I needed? Or would you have just shrugged it off, like you always do?" I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You don't get to rewrite history, Emily. I've been here. I've been trying. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was real. It mattered. Or at least, I thought it did." She stared at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she walked out of the kitchen. I heard the bedroom door slam shut, and the sound reverberated in my chest like a final blow. The rest of the day was a blur. I called out of work, unable to focus on anything but the chaos swirling in my head. I didn't know what to do, what to think. Every memory of Emily felt tainted now, every happy moment overshadowed by the knowledge that she had been lying to me for months. By afternoon, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit back and let her walk all over me. I started making calls, to a lawyer, to friends who could help me figure out my next steps. One of those calls was to Jason's wife, Sarah. Sarah and I had never been particularly close, but we'd spent enough holidays and barbecues together to know each other well. When she answered, her voice was calm and cheerful. That wouldn't last. "Hey, Sarah," I began, my throat tight. I need to talk to you about something. Something important." Her tone shifted immediately. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "No," I said bluntly. "It's not. It's about Jason. And Emily." There was a long pause. "What about them?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I swallowed hard, hating what I was about to do but knowing she deserved the truth. "They've been having an affair." The line went silent. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard a sharp intake of breath. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I'm sure," I said. "I found emails. Hotel bookings. It's been going on for months." Her breathing grew unsteady, and I could hear her trying to hold back tears. I don't know what to say." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I know how much this hurts. I'm living it too." She sniffled. "Thank you for telling me." Thank you." We ended the call, and I sat there in silence, the weight of what I'd just done pressing down on me. Part of me felt guilty for dragging someone else into this mess, but the rest of me knew it was the right thing to do. Jason didn't just betray me, he betrayed her, too. That evening, Emily emerged from the bedroom, her face calm but unreadable. "I think we need to talk," she said. "No," I replied, my voice steady. "We needed to talk months ago. Now, we need to figure out how to end this." Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't argue. She just nodded and walked away. For the first time, I felt like I was regaining control. I wasn't going to let her lies define me. This wasn't the end for me. It was the beginning of something new. Something better. That night was the first time I truly felt alone in my own home. Emily had gone to bed without another word, leaving me to sit in the silence, replaying everything over and over again in my head. The betrayal, her excuses, Jason's cowardice, it all felt surreal, like some cruel joke the universe was playing on me. But the joke wasn't funny, and it wasn't ending. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of whiskey, my phone sitting in front of me. Every few minutes, I glanced at it, half hoping, half dreading that Emily would send me a message, something resembling an apology. But the phone stayed silent, and I stayed seated, the weight of everything pressing down on my shoulders. When I finally decided to go to bed, I didn't go to the guest room. I went to our bedroom. The bed that we had shared for 10 years. Emily was already asleep, or at least pretending to be, her back turned toward the door. For a moment, I considered waking her up, demanding she talk to me, forcing her to confront what she had done. But what was the point? Words wouldn't fix this. Nothing could. I lay down on the edge of the bed, far from her, staring at the ceiling until sleep finally came. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Emily moving around the kitchen. The smell of coffee wafted through the house, and for a fleeting moment, everything felt normal. But as soon as I saw her sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, the rage bubbled up again. "Morning," she said without looking up. I didn't bother responding. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the silence between us so thick it was almost suffocating. After a few minutes, she sighed. "So, what now?" I turned to her, leaning against the counter. "What do you mean, what now? You destroyed everything. You think there's a roadmap for what comes next?" She set her phone down, finally looking at me. Her expression was tired, but not remorseful. "We can't just keep doing this, Ben. Sitting here, hating each other. It's not healthy." "Hating each other?" I laughed bitterly. "Emily, I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you anymore. That's the difference." Her face flinched, just for a moment, before she composed herself again. "So, what do you want to do? Divorce? Is that it?" "I don't see another option," I said flatly. "You've made it clear this marriage doesn't mean anything to you anymore." She frowned, her lips pressing into a thin line. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I snapped, setting my coffee down hard enough to spill some over the edge. "You want to talk about fair, Emily? Was it fair to lie to me? To sleep with Jason? To sit here and blame me for your choices?" She stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "I already told you, Ben, I didn't plan for this to happen. And I didn't plan for my wife to cheat on me with my best friend," I shot back. But here we are. Her face hardened, and she crossed her arms. Fine. If that's what you want, then let's do it. Let's get a divorce. The finality of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd known this was where things were headed, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Fine. That afternoon, I called the lawyer I'd spoken to the day before. He was a sharp, no-nonsense guy named Mark who came highly recommended by a friend. When I explained the situation, he didn't waste any time. First things first, he said. Do not leave the house. As long as you're still living there, you have a claim to it. Second, start gathering any financial documents you can find, bank statements, tax returns, anything with both your names on it. It felt cold, calculating. But I knew he was right. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore, it was about protecting myself and the life I'd built. Emily wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I couldn't afford to trust her with anything anymore. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the divorce preparations. I spent hours digging through old files, making copies of everything I could find. It was exhausting and soul-crushing, but it gave me something to focus on, something to keep me moving forward. Meanwhile, Emily seemed to carry on as if nothing had changed. She still came and went as she pleased, spending long hours at work that I no longer cared to question. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was short and cold. I had nothing left to say to her, and she didn't seem interested in fixing anything. A week later, I got a call from Sarah, Jason's wife. I hadn't expected to hear from her again after I told her about the affair, but her voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost eerily so. Ben, she said, I wanted to thank you for telling me the truth. You didn't deserve to be lied to, I replied simply. Well, she said, a hint of steel in her voice, Jason's going to find out what it's like to lose everything. I've already filed for divorce. Her words gave me a strange sense of satisfaction. Jason deserved every ounce of misery coming his way, and knowing Sarah wasn't going to let him off the hook made it a little easier to breathe. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the divorce papers sitting on the coffee table in front of me. Emily hadn't signed them yet, but it didn't matter. The end was inevitable. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to imagine a future without her. A future where I wasn't constantly questioning, doubting, hurting. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine. And that was enough. I picked up the papers, running my fingers over the sharp edges. This is it, I muttered to myself. The start of something new. It wasn't closure, not yet. But it was a step. The day Emily signed the divorce papers was oddly anticlimactic. I thought it would feel like a victory, a moment of clarity, or at least a step toward closure. Instead, it felt hollow, like one more box checked off on a to-do list I never wanted to make. She slid the papers across the dining table, her face calm and detached. For someone who had just destroyed our marriage, she seemed almost indifferent. There, she said, standing up. Happy now? I didn't respond. I just picked up the papers and placed them in the folder I had been keeping for the lawyer. I'll drop these off tomorrow. She didn't look back as she walked away, and for once, I was grateful. Her presence had become unbearable, her very existence a reminder of everything I'd lost. Every time I saw her, I had to fight the urge to ask why. Why Jason? Why now? Why betray me? But I knew the answers wouldn't matter. They wouldn't undo the damage. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer in hand, staring out at the quiet street. The silence was heavy, the kind that wraps around you and amplifies every thought. I replayed the past decade in my mind, trying to pinpoint where things went wrong. Was it me? Had I been so blind to her unhappiness that she felt like she had no choice but to look elsewhere? Or was this who she had always been, and I just refused to see it? I didn't notice the car pulling up until the headlights swept across the driveway. I tensed, expecting it to be Emily returning from one of her mysterious outings, but the car was unfamiliar. A black sedan, sleek and expensive. The driver's door opened, and to my surprise, Jason stepped out. The sight of him sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I stood up, my fists clenching instinctively. "What the hell are you doing here?" I barked as he approached the porch. He stopped at the foot of the steps, holding up his hands like a man surrendering. "Ben, please. I just want to talk." "Talk?" I laughed bitterly. "You've got some nerve showing up here after everything you've done." "I know," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I know I screwed up, okay? I needed to see you. To try to explain." I stepped forward, my anger barely contained. "Explain? Explain how you slept with my wife? How you destroyed 13 years of friendship? Go ahead, Jason. Let's hear it." He looked down, his hands falling to his sides. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That's the best you've got?" I snapped. "It wasn't supposed to happen. You sound like her." He flinched at the mention of Emily, but he didn't deny it. "Look, I'm not trying to make excuses. I know I messed up. I don't know. I was lonely. And she—" "Don't you dare try to justify this," I interrupted, my voice rising. "You were lonely? Jason, I trusted you. You were my best friend. You were supposed to have my back, not stab me in it." "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I really am." "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I said, my voice cold. "Sorry doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't make me trust you again. It doesn't fix my marriage." He nodded, his shoulders slumping. "I just wanted you to hear it from me. That I'm sorry." I stared at him for a long moment, my chest heaving with anger and hurt. Then I shook my head. "You're not sorry, Jason. You're just sorry you got caught." I turned and walked back into the house, slamming the door behind me. His footsteps lingered for a moment before I heard him get back in his car and drive away. I stood in the entryway, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Part of me wished I had punched him again, but I knew it wouldn't have made a difference. Nothing would. The next morning, I met with my lawyer to finalize the paperwork. Mark was efficient, walking me through the process with the calm demeanor of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Once she's officially served, the clock starts ticking," he said, sliding the papers into a folder. "You're on your way, Ben." His words should have felt like progress, but they didn't. They felt like a concession, like admitting defeat. I left the office feeling more drained than ever. Over the next few days, I began the process of reclaiming my life. I started packing up Emily's things, boxing them neatly and leaving them in the garage for her to pick up. I went through old photos, deleting her from my phone and stashing the physical copies in a shoebox at the back of the closet. It was like trying to erase a ghost. No matter how much I removed, her presence lingered. One evening, while sorting through a drawer in the living room, I found an old anniversary card she had given me. Her handwriting was neat and deliberate, the words flowing with love and gratitude. "Ben, you're my rock. My safe place. I don't know what I'd do without you. Here's to a lifetime of happiness together. Love, Emily." I stared at the card for a long time, my vision blurring as tears welled up. The woman who wrote those words felt like a stranger now, someone I couldn't reconcile with the person who had torn my life apart. Without thinking, I crumpled the card and threw it into the trash. It didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered. That night, I sat on the porch again, the box of her things beside me. When she pulled into the driveway, I didn't go inside. I didn't want to hide anymore. She stepped out of the car, her expression guarded. "Is this it?" she asked, gesturing to the box. "That's it," I said. "Everything that was yours." She nodded, picking up the box and loading it into the trunk. As she turned back toward me, she hesitated. "Ben." Don't," I interrupted. "Whatever you were about to say, don't. It's too late." Her lips pressed together, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. But I didn't care anymore. She got into the car without another word and drove away. For the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt like freedom. After Emily drove away with the last of her things, a strange calm settled over the house. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, a stillness full of potential. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe without the weight of her presence suffocating me. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't feel exhausted either. Instead, I sat in the living room, thinking about the life I'd built and how easily it had crumbled. There were no more lies to uncover, no more betrayals to confront. All that was left was me, staring at the pieces and wondering what to do with them. The next morning, I decided to make a change. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a tomb of memories I no longer wanted. Everywhere I looked, there was something that reminded me of Emily: photos, furniture we'd picked out together, even the paint color on the walls. If I was going to move forward, I needed to make it my space again. I started with the living room. I pulled down the framed wedding photo that hung above the fireplace, the one where we looked so happy, so in love. It felt heavy in my hands, not because of the frame but because of what it represented. Without hesitation, I slid it into a box marked donations. I wasn't going to let it haunt me anymore. From there, I went room by room, purging anything that felt like it belonged to the life I was leaving behind. Emily's favorite throw pillows, gone. The fancy espresso machine she insisted we needed but never used, gone. Even the dining table, where we had hosted countless dinners with friends, felt tainted. By the end of the day, the garage was packed with boxes, ready to be donated or tossed. It was exhausting work, but it felt good, cleansing, almost. With each item I removed, the house felt less like a reminder of what I'd lost and more like a blank slate for what could come next. In the evenings, I started going for long walks around the neighborhood. At first, it was just to clear my head, but soon it became a ritual. There was something grounding about the rhythmic sound of my footsteps on the pavement, the cool night air brushing against my skin. It gave me time to think, to process everything that had happened. One night, I ran into Sarah, Jason's soon-to-be ex-wife. She was walking her dog, a scrappy little terrier that barked excitedly when it saw me. Sarah smiled faintly, pulling the dog back on its leash. "Hey, Ben," she said, her voice tentative. "Hey," I replied, unsure what else to say. We stood there awkwardly for a moment before she broke the silence. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged. "It's a process." "You?" "Same," she said, looking down at the dog. "Some days are better than others." I nodded, and for a moment, we just stood there, two people bound by shared betrayal. Finally, she looked up at me, her expression softening. "You know, it's weird. I thought I'd be angrier. At Jason, at Emily. But mostly, I just feel empty." "I get that," I said. "The anger comes and goes, but the emptiness sticks around." She smiled faintly. "Well, at least we're not alone in it." We talked for a while longer, mostly about mundane things, work, the weather, her plans to move to a new place once the divorce was finalized. It was the most normal conversation I'd had in weeks, and when we finally said goodbye, I felt a little lighter. A few days later, I decided it was time to focus on myself. For years, my life had revolved around Emily and our relationship. Now, for the first time in a long time, I had the freedom to figure out what I wanted, who I wanted to be. I started small. I joined a gym, partly to burn off the restless energy that had been building inside me and partly to feel like I was doing something positive. The first few workouts were brutal, my body wasn't used to the strain, but the ache that followed was satisfying. It reminded me that I was still alive, still capable of pushing forward. I also started reconnecting with old friends, people I had drifted away from during my marriage. One of them, Chris, invited me out for drinks one night. It felt strange at first, sitting at a bar without Emily by my side, but by the second beer, I started to relax. Chris didn't ask too many questions about what had happened, for which I was grateful. Instead, we talked about everything else, sports, work, old stories from college. For the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. As the weeks went by, the pain of Emily's betrayal began to dull. It didn't disappear entirely, I wasn't naive enough to think it ever would, but it stopped consuming me. The memories that once felt like open wounds started to scab over, and I found myself thinking about her less and less. One night, I came across an old journal I hadn't touched in years. I flipped through its pages, reading entries from a time when I was younger, more hopeful. It reminded me of who I used to be before life got complicated, before love turned into something so bitter. Inspired, I started writing again, not about Emily or Jason, but about the future, about the things I wanted to do, the places I wanted to see. One afternoon, as I was organizing the garage, Emily showed up unexpectedly. She looked different, tired, older somehow, as if the weight of her choices had finally caught up with her. "I came to get the last of my things," she said, avoiding my eyes. "They're in the corner," I replied, nodding toward a small pile of boxes. She hesitated before speaking again. "Ben. I just want you to know I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to believe her, but the words felt hollow, too late to make any difference. Finally, I nodded. "I hope you figure out whatever it is you're looking for, Emily." She opened her mouth as if to say more, but then she just nodded and left. As I watched her car drive away, I realized I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just relief. After Emily left for the last time, it felt as though the final thread tying me to the old life had been severed. The house was quiet, peaceful, but also strange, like a blank canvas waiting to be filled. I realized I wasn't just grieving the betrayal anymore. I was mourning the version of myself I had lost in that marriage, the man who believed in forever. The next day, I stood in the middle of the living room, taking in the emptiness. I had purged so much of Emily's influence from the space that it barely felt lived in anymore. It was time to start rebuilding, not just the house, but my life. The first thing I did was repaint the walls. The beige we had chosen together felt lifeless now, like a compromise neither of us cared about. I wanted something bold, something that felt like me. I spent hours at the hardware store, comparing shades of deep blues and vibrant greens before settling on a rich, smoky gray. The act of painting, of covering up the past and transforming the space, was cathartic. With every stroke of the roller, I felt lighter. I tackled other projects, too. I replaced the dining table, opting for a sleek, modern design that felt nothing like the heavy, traditional piece we had picked out together. I rearranged the furniture in the living room, hung new artwork on the walls, and bought a small, ridiculously expensive coffee machine that I actually planned to use. The house slowly started to feel like mine, no, not just mine, but me. Every choice I made felt like a small step toward reclaiming my identity. One afternoon, as I was unpacking a new rug I'd ordered online, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Sarah, hey, I found something of yours at Jason's place. Can I drop it off later?" I frowned, curious but wary. What could she possibly have that belonged to me? After a moment of hesitation, I replied. "Me, sure. I'll be home all day. She showed up an hour later, holding a small, weathered box. She handed it to me with an apologetic smile. I think Jason had this by mistake, she said. I found it while packing up his things. I opened the box, and my heart twisted. Inside were old photos, trinkets, and keepsakes from my friendship with Jason, mementos from college, a signed baseball from a game we'd attended together, a bottle cap from the first beer we ever shared. At the very bottom was a note, written in Jason's handwriting. To Ben, my brother from another mother. Here's to always having each other's backs. The irony wasn't lost on me. I clenched the box tightly, torn between anger and sadness. Do you want to keep it? Sarah asked gently. I nodded. Yeah. I think I need to. She stayed for a while, sitting on the porch with me as the sun dipped below the horizon. We talked about Jason and Emily, but also about life, about the strange paths we both found ourselves on now. It was easy to talk to Sarah, maybe because she understood the pain in a way no one else could. Before she left, she turned to me and smiled. You're doing okay, Ben. Better than okay, actually. You're rebuilding. That's more than a lot of people can say. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded. Her words stayed with me long after she drove away. As the weeks passed, I started saying yes to things I'd once turned down. Chris invited me to a weekend camping trip with some old friends, and for the first time in years, I didn't make an excuse. The fresh air, the crackling campfire, the easy camaraderie, it was exactly what I needed. We told stories, drank too much beer, and laughed until our sides hurt. It reminded me of who I was before the weight of my marriage had settled on my shoulders. Back home, I signed up for a woodworking class. It was something I'd always wanted to try but never made time for. The instructor was an older man with a gruff voice and a passion for crafting. He showed us how to shape raw planks of wood into something beautiful, something useful. My first project, a simple coffee table, was uneven and full of flaws, but I was proud of it nonetheless. One evening, as I was scrolling through old photos on my phone, I came across one of Emily and me from our honeymoon. We were standing on a beach, her arms wrapped around me, both of us smiling at the camera. I stared at it for a long time, remembering how happy we'd been, or how happy I thought we'd been. Without hesitation, I deleted the photo. It wasn't an act of anger or spite. It was simply time to let it go. By the time fall rolled around, the house felt like a completely different place. Friends started commenting on how much lighter I seemed, how much more alive. And they were right. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. One afternoon, Sarah texted me out of the blue. Sarah, how about dinner? My treat. Just two survivors celebrating the fact that we're still standing. I smiled at the message, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Me, sounds good. Just let me know when. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place with candlelit tables and soft jazz playing in the background. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time, I caught myself smiling without forcing it. As the night went on, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. The pain, the betrayal, the anger, they were still there, but they no longer defined me. That night, as I drove home, I rolled down the windows and let the crisp autumn air fill the car. The city lights blurred past me, and for the first time, I felt a sense of hope. Not for what I'd lost, but for what was ahead. The road stretched out before me, open and full of possibilities. I wasn't rebuilding my life. I was creating a new one. And it was mine, entirely mine. Months passed, and life began to settle into a new normal. The house felt like home again, I found joy in new hobbies, and the weight of Emily and Jason's betrayal no longer consumed me. But life has a way of reminding you that loose ends rarely stay tied, and one crisp November evening, I received an unexpected text from Jason. "Jason, we need to talk. It's important." My first instinct was to delete it, to pretend it never arrived. But something about the message lingered. It wasn't just the audacity of Jason reaching out, it was the word important. Against my better judgment, I replied. "Me, what could you possibly have to say that matters now?" His response came almost immediately. "Jason, I know you hate me, but this isn't about me. It's about Emily. You deserve to know the truth." The truth. I thought I already knew it. She cheated, he betrayed me, and the life I thought I had was a lie. What more was there to know? But the curiosity burned through my resolve, and before I could stop myself, I agreed to meet him. We met at a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. Jason looked different, haggard, like the weight of his actions had finally caught up to him. He avoided my eyes as he sat down, nursing a whiskey like it was the only thing holding him together. "You've got 5 minutes," I said coldly, not bothering with pleasantries. "Say what you need to say." He nodded, taking a long sip before he spoke. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But there's something you don't know about Emily." I rolled my eyes. This should be good. What could you possibly tell me that I don't already know? He hesitated, his hands trembling slightly as he set his glass down. "She lied to both of us, Ben. She wasn't just cheating on you with me." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I leaned back, staring at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Jason ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the room like he was afraid someone might overhear. "After everything blew up, I started putting pieces together. There were other guys, Ben. Not just me. She's been doing this for years." My chest tightened as his words sank in. I wanted to call him a liar, to accuse him of trying to shift the blame, but something in his voice, the raw, broken tone, stopped me. "You expect me to believe that?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. He nodded. I didn't want to believe it either. But I found messages, receipts. She's been lying to both of us this whole time. We were just part of her game. The air between us felt heavy, suffocating. My mind raced with questions, memories, and a sickening sense of realization. Emily had always been charming, always knew how to get what she wanted. But I'd never thought of her as manipulative, not like this. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jason looked down at his glass. "Because I can't live with it anymore. I thought I was special, that we had something real. But I was just another pawn, just like you. And you deserve to know." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "You're telling me this like it makes anything better. Like it fixes what you did." "I'm not trying to fix it," he said quietly. I needed you to know the truth." I walked out without another word, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. My hands shook as I fumbled for my car keys. The idea that Emily had been playing us both, playing who knows how many others, was almost too much to process. But deep down, I knew Jason was telling the truth. The next day, I confronted Emily. I called her, told her to meet me at the house one last time. When she arrived, she looked annoyed, like I was inconveniencing her. "What's this about, Ben?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Jason," I said bluntly. "He told me everything." Her expression flickered, just for a second, before she regained her composure. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "Not again." "How many, Emily? How many were there?" She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please. Are you seriously dragging this out? Does it matter? Does it matter?" I repeated, my voice rising. You blew up my life, and you have the nerve to act like none of it matters? She smirked, that same infuriating smirk that used to drive me mad. You're so predictable, Ben. Always needing to be the victim. Something inside me snapped. I stepped closer, my voice cold and steady. This isn't about me being a victim. It's about you being a liar, a manipulator, and a coward. For the first time, her smirk faltered. She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand. I don't need an explanation, I said. I don't need anything from you anymore. But I want you to know one thing, you don't get to take my peace. Not anymore. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. She turned and walked out the door, slamming it behind her. This time, there was no lingering sadness, no second guessing. Just relief. Months later, I found myself standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean, the wind whipping around me. It was a place I'd always wanted to visit but never had the time. The waves crashed against the rocks below, powerful and unrelenting, a reminder that life moves forward no matter how hard it tries to knock you down. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because I had finally found something better than closure. I had found myself. And for the first time in years, I felt free.
He looked at her like prey, hungry, confident, certain he would take her that night. His hand gripped his whiskey like he gripped every damn thing in life, tight, possessive, dominant. And she didn't flinch. She smirked, turned to me with that smug glint in her eye and whispered the words that cracked something deep in my chest. That's exactly what I want. You won't stop it. You guard bananas, not your woman. Her words slapped harder than any punch I'd ever taken. Everyone in that dim-lit room might have seen us as just another married couple at a fancy rooftop event. But in that moment, I knew I was just a prop. A clown in a suit, holding a drink, watching my own wife flirt with a man who didn't know the meaning of restraint. His name was Chase Whitman. You know the type, designer stubble, Armani shoes, alpha energy that reeks of insecurity masked by loud laughter and a platinum Amex. He was the kind of man who didn't steal women. He made them walk to him, crawl if needed. And Madison, my wife, oh, she didn't even hesitate. She leaned closer to him like gravity had chosen sides. I should have walked. Should have left right then, saved what little dignity I had. But instead, I smiled. I nodded at her, then turned and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. I don't fight for leftovers. She froze. Just for a second. That tiny fracture in her confidence, it was enough. Because what she didn't know is what I had already left in their room. You see, 2 nights before, I found a burner phone, stuffed deep in the glove box of her Audi. Madison always hated clutter, so when I saw it, I knew. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The messages weren't vague, they were explicit. Plans. Hotel reservations. Voice notes. One of them was from Chase, whispering, I'll make her forget her last name tonight. So I booked the exact suite 2 doors down from theirs. And while they were downstairs sipping $300 cocktails, I slipped into their room. No breaking and entering, just charm and $100 to the cleaning lady. And in their room, I planted a small GoPro. Hidden in the air vent. Motion triggered. Night vision. And it was already recording. But that wasn't all. In her clutch, her favorite red one, I replaced her lipstick with a replica tube. Inside? A tiny vial of UV reactive dye. Nothing harmful. Nothing dangerous. But when Chase would touch her, when he kissed her neck or slid his hands over her thighs, his skin would light up like a club dancer under a black light. Proof. Unignorable. Unforgettable. The party swirled on, clueless to the silent war unfolding between us. She leaned into him more, now openly laughing, touching his chest, eyes wild with thrill. Chase smirked at me. He actually had the audacity to raise his glass in my direction and mouth, do the right thing. Walk away. Right then and there, my heartbeat slowed. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pain. Just a strange calm. I texted Madison, Suite 706. Just go. I'm done being your doormat. She looked at her phone, laughed, then took Chase's hand and strutted toward the elevators without even glancing back. They thought they were winning, but I wasn't finished. Not yet. What came next would redefine what it means to take revenge. What they didn't know was that every second in that suite would be documented. Every whisper, every lie, every betrayal. And by morning, the footage wouldn't be in my hands anymore. It would be in hers. her father, her boss, her closest friends. And Chase? He'd regret ever thinking he could humiliate me, because there's something far more brutal than violence. Exposure. And I was about to shine a blinding light. By the time the elevator dinged and they disappeared behind the mirrored doors, I was already moving. Calm, focused, deliberate. I left the party without a word. No dramatic exit, no shattered glasses or public scenes. That's not how I do things. I don't roar. I strike. I went straight to my room, Suite 704. 2 doors down from the battlefield. As I opened the laptop and brought up the feed from the camera, I felt my jaw clench. The screen lit up in real time. Chase and Madison were entering the suite like it was their honeymoon. She kicked off her heels, laughing, tossing her clutch to the side. He closed the door behind them and wrapped his arms around her like he'd won a prize. And she melted into him like she'd forgotten she was ever mine. It was strange, watching your wife betray you while sitting alone just steps away. No rage. No tears. Just a burning cold that settled into my bones. I wasn't watching to hurt myself. I was watching to build the case. And they gave me more than I needed. Chase pulled off his shirt, revealing a body sculpted by vanity and steroids. Madison trailed her hands down his chest like she was tracing every bad decision she was about to make. Her lips found his neck, her voice low and breathy. "You're not like him," she whispered. "He just watches the world. You conquer it." My stomach twisted, but I didn't look away. I needed this. I needed the clarity. Every lie she'd fed me, "I'm working late. You're imagining things. You're being paranoid." They dissolved on that screen in real time. And then the UV trick. Chase touched her. Just a casual caress down her arms. It took less than 30 seconds before it showed. His hands started to glow faintly. Blue. Then brighter. The dye was invisible to the eye, but the camera picked it up crystal clear under the filter I'd added. Proof. Pure, undeniable evidence. I hit record. She had no idea. No clue she was burying herself with every move. And as she laughed and moaned and praised him, I opened my backup drive and synced the footage. 1 copy for me. 1 for her father. 1 for her boss. 1 for my lawyer. And 1 to upload when the time came. Then I prepared the message. AirDrop. Anonymous name. 1 click. Just as they collapsed into bed, breathless and tangled, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She picked it up, frowning. Chase rolled over, drunk on himself. She clicked the message. It was a still from the footage, a perfect shot of her straddling him, his glowing hands on her thighs. The caption read, "You thought I'd fight for this?" She sat up straight. Panic. Absolute panic. Chase looked confused. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the screen like it was a ghost. I smiled. Then came the knock on their door. 3 loud, echoing thuds. Not me. Not a threat. Just a package. Room service. I'd ordered it 10 minutes before. Champagne. Dessert. And tucked into the napkin a flash drive. Identical footage. Branded with her name in gold ink. Classy. Final. I could imagine her unwrapping it later, shaking hands and hollow eyes, realizing this wasn't just a betrayal, it was a legacy she could never erase. That's when I turned off the feed. I'd seen enough. She had made her choice. And I had made mine. Let the game begin. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't give myself the luxury. While she was wrapped around him like a silk sheet, I was drafting the beginning of her downfall. By morning, I'd already sent the footage to 4 different inboxes. Labeled. Timestamped. No commentary. Just raw betrayal. And by 9 a.m., her world would already begin to shake. But Madison? She had no idea yet. She strolled into the apartment the next day around noon, wearing the same black dress from last night, makeup smudged, hair tousled, and that same damn smirk like she'd just been crowned Queen of Manhattan. She didn't expect me to be home. She probably thought I'd be licking my wounds somewhere, too spineless to confront her. But I was sitting in the living room, calm, silent, waiting. She froze, just for a second. Then her eyes flicked back to their usual performance mode. "Oh, you're here?" she said, reaching into her purse, casual as ever. "Didn't think you'd be home so early. I stayed at Terrace." Girls' night turned into brunch. Girls' night. I stared at her. Let the silence drag just long enough to burn. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I asked, voice level. She looked up. Eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" I said, rising from the couch. "Did Tara watch while you moaned Chase's name all night?" That did it. Her mouth twitched. A flicker of guilt, Or maybe just surprised that I knew the name. I walked slowly toward her. You think I didn't see you? That sweet? That performance? I know everything, Madison. She scoffed, but it was forced now. You're spying on me? You're lying to me. For months. That wasn't spying. That was survival. She crossed her arms, instantly switching to her usual strategy. Attack, deflect, dominate. Oh please, she snapped. You haven't touched me in months. All you do is work, eat, and act like I'm some roommate who owes you something. Chase sees me. He makes me feel alive. And guess what? I don't need permission to feel like a goddamn woman. No, I said. You needed honesty. But you buried that 6 feet under your self-obsession. She rolled her eyes, trying to brush past me, but I blocked her. Don't walk away from this, Madison. Because you're going to stand here and answer one question. She hesitated, then turned, venom in her voice. What? Why? I asked. A simple word. But she couldn't answer it. Not really. She gave a half laugh, bitter and hollow. Because you're boring. Because you play safe. You're not a man. You're a routine. I needed chaos. I needed fire. I nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. Then I opened the side drawer of the table and pulled out the printouts. Stills from the video. One by one, I dropped them onto the coffee table. Her face. His hands. The black light glow. The timestamp. She went pale. This isn't chaos, I said, stepping back. This is destruction. And it's yours. She grabbed the photos, flipping through them in a panic. What the hell is this? Evidence, I said. And it's already in the inboxes of your father, your boss, and the lawyer who's preparing our divorce. Her face crumpled. Wait, divorce? You bet. Suddenly, the fire in her turned into fear. Ethan, wait. Let's talk about this. We are, I said. This is me talking. You just never thought I'd speak. She dropped the papers, stepped closer, her voice softening, trying one last manipulation. I made a mistake. No, I interrupted. You made a choice. Now live with it. Madison stood there, holding the printouts like they burned her hands. Her voice cracked for the first time, not out of sadness, but panic. You can't send this to my father, she said, eyes wide. He'll never look at me the same. He already thinks I'm a screw-up. Then maybe you should have thought twice before giving Chase a private show in a hotel suite, I replied coldly. Her lips parted to argue, but nothing came. For once, the great manipulator was speechless. I walked back to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of black coffee. She followed me like a shadow, her steps tentative, hesitant. I could feel the shift. She wasn't in control anymore, and she hated that more than anything. Madison thrived on power, control, image, and I just ripped the mask off in front of the world she cared about most. You can't do this, Ethan, she said finally. You'll ruin me. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I just documented it. She stared at me, then grabbed her phone in a fury, her thumbs moving fast. I'm calling my father. I'll tell him this is some deepfake. That you fabricated all of this to get out of the prenup. I let her talk. Let her spiral. Then I calmly walked to the side table and picked up the envelope marked Copy to Ronald Whitmore. You're too late, I said. He received the file at 7:48 this morning, and by 8:30 he'd already replied. I tossed the phone toward her. Check your email. She opened it with shaking fingers, and when her eyes scanned the message, I saw the moment her world cracked open. From r.whitmore@whitmorelegalgroup.com. Subject, extremely disappointed. Madison. I expected better. Not just as my daughter, but as a person. Don't contact me until you've cleaned up the mess you created. Dad. She dropped the phone like it burned her. It was silent for a beat. Then she screamed. Not a sob. Not regret. A scream as sharp, furious, feral. You vindictive bastard. You wanted to destroy me. No, I said. I wanted you to respect me. But since you preferred humiliation, I gave you what you craved. She charged toward me, eyes wild. Do you think this makes you a man? What kind of man exposes his wife like that? The kind of man who's done being disrespected. The kind who doesn't protect snakes and diamonds. She froze. And that's when her phone rang. Her boss. I didn't even need to answer it to know what was coming. I stepped out onto the balcony, coffee in hand, while she answered with a shaky voice. Hey, Rachel. I heard it. Every syllable. Even through the glass. Rachel wasn't subtle. You're suspended. HR will reach out. Your conduct reflects directly on the firm. And your husband sent us quite the file this morning. Click. Madison crumpled to the floor, clutching her phone like it might save her. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was finally free. I had loved her. God, I had. But she had carved that love up piece by piece with every lie, every smirk, every night she said, "I'm with the girls," when she was really wrapped in someone else's sheets. She came out to the balcony a few minutes later, face blotched, hair messy, pride shattered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I turned my head, met her eyes. "No, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught." And then I walked past her, back into the apartment, and picked up the suitcase I'd packed the night before. "This is the last time you'll see me," I said. "Enjoy the chaos you wanted so badly." She didn't stop me, because now she knew. This time, the alpha wasn't Chase. It was me. I didn't slam the door when I left. There was no need. That kind of drama belonged to her, to Madison. I'd always been the quiet one, the calm one, the too nice guy. She once told me that I lacked edge, that I played life on safe mode. But now I had edge. I had armor. I had clarity. The suitcase was light. I didn't need much. My essentials, my laptop, the signed documents from my lawyer, and a drive with every file, message, and video Madison thought she got away with. I didn't leave behind a note or a goodbye. She had said everything when she told me, "You guard bananas, not your woman." She didn't realize I wasn't a guard. I was the damn architect. The next few days felt like a strange dream. I stayed in a small downtown condo my friend Luke loaned me. He didn't ask questions, just handed me the key, patted my shoulder, and said, "Handle your war." I checked my emails daily, but I didn't respond to hers. Every morning, a new subject line from Madison. "Please, just talk to me. We can fix this." I didn't mean any of it. It was just a mistake. "I need you." But the one that really twisted the knife wasn't from her. It was from Chase. Yeah, Chase. That walking cologne had actually had the gall to reach out. From chase@whitman.com. Subject, man to man. "Ethan, I know things got out of hand. I didn't mean for any of this to explode the way it did. Madison and I. It was supposed to be casual. Fun. No harm done. She said things were over between you two emotionally. I didn't expect you to react like this. Let's be civil. Let's talk. Maybe we can clean this up." He wanted to clean it up. Like it was spilled coffee. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Then, I made a phone call I'd been dreading, but knew was necessary. Her father, Ronald Whitmore. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan." "Mr. Whitmore," I said, voice firm. "I appreciate your message. I just wanted you to know, there's no coming back from this. I'll be filing for divorce this week. The footage has been secured." He sighed. A long, heavy sound. "I always respected you," he said. "And I warned her once. Told her if she ever mistook your kindness for weakness, she'd regret it." "She has," I said. "And she will," he added coldly. I wasn't expecting that, but it hit harder than anything Madison could have said. "I'll make sure the firm is separated from her," he continued. "And if you need anything, you call me." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thank you." When we hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That's the real difference. Anger fades. But resolve? That stays. The next morning, she showed up. Outside the condo. Hair tied back, no makeup, shaking hands. She didn't look like the woman who strutted into that hotel room like she was Cleopatra reborn. She looked lost. I didn't open the door. I just watched through the camera. She stood there for 10 minutes, then placed something at the doorstep. A photo of us, our wedding day. Smiling. Hopeful. On the back, her handwriting. If I could take it back, I would. But you're right. You don't fight for leftovers. I didn't deserve you. She finally understood. Too late. I never saw Madison cry before. Not real tears. She was always the type to weaponize emotion. Tears when she wanted forgiveness. Smiles when she wanted something. Silence when she wanted control. But that day at my doorstep? That wasn't manipulation. That was a woman staring at the ruins of her little empire, realizing she was the one who lit the fuse. Still, I didn't open the door. She had burned every bridge between us, and now she was begging across the ashes. But I'd built a new path, one without her. 3 days later, I got another message. Not from her. It was a voicemail. From Chase. "Ethan, man, I don't know what you did, but everything's falling apart. My board found out. Investors are pulling. Madison told them it was all fake, but someone leaked the footage. I lost 2 contracts yesterday. HR's investigating. I get it, all right? I get it. You win. Just, please, tell me what it'll take to make this stop. There it was. The alpha crumbling. The same man who looked at my wife like prey now sounded like a cornered animal. Shaky. Scared. Desperate. And I wasn't done. The footage hadn't leaked from me. I kept it tight. Sent only to the right people. But I knew how rumors worked, and I knew how Madison worked. She probably tried to do damage control by spinning the story, and in doing so, she gave someone just enough to run with it. Chase's company thrived on image, on branding, on trust. His clients weren't just businesses, they were socialites, influencers, people who'd pay six figures to be seen in the right light. And now? He was radioactive. That same day, I sent a package to his office. No note, no threat, just a framed photo, one I pulled from the GoPro footage. His glowing hand wrapped around my wife's neck. Her eyes closed, her mouth open, timestamp visible in the corner. On the bottom, in engraved gold. You played the wrong man. I never heard from him again. But I saw the consequences. 2 weeks later, Luke sent me a screenshot from a tabloid blog. Headline: Whitman Branding CEO takes leave amid scandal. Sources cite moral breaches and client distrust. The article was brutal. They didn't mention Madison by name, but they didn't need to. The details were surgical. Anonymous footage, married woman, undisclosed affair at corporate event. Chase was finished. Funny thing is, I never set out to destroy him. I only wanted the truth to rise. But when you build a castle out of lies, the truth doesn't knock, it levels everything. Madison tried once more. This time through her sister. I was at a bar with Luke when Kelly walked in, sat next to me, and ordered 2 whiskeys like we were old friends. I'm not here to argue, she said. She's a mess, Ethan. Hasn't left her apartment. Barely eats. Keeps staring at that wedding photo. You broke her. I raised an eyebrow. No. She broke herself. I just stopped cleaning up the pieces. Kelly sighed. She said to tell you she was wrong. That Chase didn't mean anything. That it was about feeling seen. I let the silence hang. Then I looked her straight in the eye. She was seen. Just not the way she wanted. I finished my drink and stood up. If she wants closure, tell her this. Some lessons come after the loss. And some men don't come back once you spit in their face. Kelly didn't follow me because she knew the truth. Madison lost the one man who would have burned the world for her because she wanted to play with matches. The divorce went through faster than anyone expected. She didn't fight it. Maybe because she knew there was nothing left to salvage. Maybe because her father made it clear that any further resistance would only draw more blood from a wound she inflicted. Whatever the reason, she signed the papers in silence. Not a word, not a smirk, just a trembling hand, a pale face, and red-rimmed eyes that no longer held power over me. My lawyer passed me the final document. Congratulations, he said. You're a free man. Funny. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt clean. Like I'd walked out of a burning building without looking back. The weeks that followed were strangely peaceful. I moved into a new place, smaller, quieter, surrounded by tall windows and empty walls that didn't echo with betrayal. I replaced the bed, donated the couch, got rid of anything that had her perfume soaked into the seams. One night, while setting up my new office, I found the last box I hadn't touched since I left our apartment. Inside was a journal, my old one. Back when I believed in love like it was armor. Back when I wrote letters to Madison on our anniversaries and never gave them to her because I said it all with my actions. I flipped through a few pages. One line hit me harder than I expected. Love isn't about who you say, I do to. It's about who you choose every day after that. She stopped choosing me long ago. She just didn't have the guts to say it. That weekend, I got an invitation in the mail. Cream envelope. Elegant script. Chase Whitman was launching a rebranding gala. The irony nearly made me choke on my coffee. But I wasn't mad. I was curious. So I showed up. Wore the same suit I wore to that rooftop party the night she betrayed me in plain sight. Only this time, I walked in alone, not like a ghost in the background, but like a storm in a silk tie. People noticed. Chase saw me from across the room. His smile faltered for just a second. Then he raised his glass like we were old friends. I didn't return the gesture. I just kept walking, slow and steady, until I reached the bar. That's when I saw her. Madison, standing by herself. She looked different, diminished. Her hair was pulled back too tightly, her dress more conservative than usual. No jewelry, no glow. Just a woman trying to blend into the shadows of a room she used to dominate. She turned, saw me. Her eyes widened, then softened. "Ethan," she said, stepping forward. I didn't smile. Didn't blink. I just looked at her like a stranger. "Didn't expect to see you here," she added. I sipped my drink. Didn't expect to be invited to my own roast. She gave a weak laugh. "You look good. You look like someone who finally met the mirror." That hit her. Her eyes welled, but I didn't care anymore. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "I made mistakes. You made a choice," I corrected. "I was angry. Lonely. So was I. I didn't cheat." She flinched. Silence settled between us. Then I leaned in, calm and sharp like a knife in velvet. "You told me I guarded bananas. That I wasn't enough. But tell me, how does it feel to know the man you dismissed as boring dismantled you without ever raising his voice?" Her mouth opened, but I walked away, because that conversation was already over. That night, I stood under the city lights, breathing in freedom. Not just from her, but from who I used to be. The man who tolerated crumbs because he thought love meant sacrifice. Who mistook loyalty for silence. Who thought being a good man meant being stepped on. That man died the night I whispered, "I don't fight for leftovers." It's strange, really, how quiet the world becomes once you stop begging to be heard. There were nights I used to sit awake wondering where she was, who she was with, why she didn't text back. Nights I thought maybe I was too boring, too steady, too routine. Madison once said I lived life like a spreadsheet. Linear, predictable. But here's what she never understood. Predictable doesn't mean weak. And silence doesn't mean stupid. She thought I was the guy who would always wait, always forgive, always put the relationship first. She never once asked what would happen if I stopped putting her first. Now she knows. I ran into her one last time, 3 months later, in the grocery store of all places. Fitting. The irony of it hit like a slap. The same place she mocked me for, guarding bananas. She was in the canned food aisle. Alone. Wearing oversized sunglasses and pretending to look at labels. I almost walked past her without a word. But she saw me. "Ethan," she said, hesitant. I stopped. Looked at her. She looked older. Not in years, but in damage. The kind you can't fix with concealer or conceit. "You look," she paused, unsure. "Well, I am," I said plainly. A moment of awkward silence passed between us. "I heard about your startup," she added. "Luke said you've got investors lining up?" I nodded. "Yeah. Turns out, focus returns fast once betrayal is out of the house." She winced. She tried to smile, but it fell apart. "I just wanted to say, thank you." "For what?" "For not destroying me completely. For not leaking the footage to the world." I looked at her and shook my head. "I didn't spare you. I spared myself. Because your shame isn't worth dragging my peace through the mud." She blinked hard, like she wanted to cry but wouldn't give herself permission. "I still think about what you said," she whispered. "I don't fight for leftovers." I met her eyes. Good. Because that wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. Walking out of that store felt like the final door closing behind me. No more echoes. No more questions. Just forward. I've been asked 100 times since then what I would have done differently. Nothing. Not a damn thing. Because I needed to be broken by her to realize I'd been shrinking myself for years. I needed to watch her betray me in HD to understand that love without respect is just performance art. I needed to lose the woman I thought was everything to finally meet the man I had buried beneath compromise. Would I love again? Sure. But on my terms. No more games. No more people-pleasing. No more begging someone to choose me when they were never even in the same game. To any man reading this, anyone who's been cheated on, humiliated, lied to, played like background noise while someone else lived the spotlight. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not too nice. You were just loyal to the wrong person. And the day you stop explaining your worth to someone who sees you as optional, that's the day you become dangerous. Because love isn't measured by how much you endure. It's measured by what you never allow again. So this is where the story ends, not with revenge, not with fireworks or screaming matches, but with something better. Silence, peace, and power. Because I don't fight for leftovers. I sit at tables where I'm served what I deserve. And I never, ever settle again.
I never saw it coming. Not like this. I had just stepped into the house after a long day at work, the familiar scent of dinner still hanging in the air, when I saw the phone. Jamie's phone. Sitting on the kitchen counter, screen lit up like a neon sign. I wasn't planning on snooping, hell, I wasn't even thinking straight. But then it buzzed again. It was a message from an unfamiliar number, and for some reason, I couldn't look away. Curiosity, I guess. It got the best of me. I unlocked the phone. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. I'm counting the minutes. The words burned in my chest. My head started to spin. My stomach dropped like a weight in water. I didn't even need to see who it was. I knew. I'd been feeling something off for weeks, a crack in the foundation of our marriage I couldn't ignore. But this? This was confirmation. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back as I grabbed my jacket. She wasn't home yet. She always worked late on Tuesdays, but tonight something was different. This time, I wasn't waiting to hear the usual tired excuse. No, tonight I was going to find out what was really going on. I'd installed the spy app on Jamie's phone a few weeks ago. It wasn't a proud moment, but I couldn't shake the nagging doubt. Every time she'd left, I felt like I was losing her. The late nights, the girls' weekends, the secretive conversations. Now, I had proof. The app was tracing her location. The dot blinked on the map, just a few miles away. I didn't think twice. I couldn't. I threw the keys to the car on the counter and slammed the door behind me. I was moving on instinct, no clear plan, just a burning need for answers. As I drove, my mind was racing. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Why hadn't she told me? Did she even care? The app led me to a small, run-down neighborhood. The houses were dilapidated, the streets quiet, like something out of a bad movie. But I didn't care about the setting. I cared about her. I cared about the man she'd been with. I pulled up outside a nondescript house, a modest two-story. No lights on. Just silence. I could barely breathe. I checked my phone again. Yep, she was there. And that's when I saw the figure in the window. It was him. Her lover. The bastard. He was pacing around the living room, oblivious to the fact that I was staring right at him from the street. I could feel my chest tighten, my heart thudding in my ears. Anger mixed with a sinking feeling that made me sick to my stomach. I didn't knock. I didn't bother with the doorbell. I kicked it open. The sound echoed like thunder, and I rushed in. The living room was dim, but I didn't care. I didn't need to see everything clearly. I just needed to confront this. The man froze, his eyes locking with mine, a mix of confusion and recognition dawning on his face. He wasn't some smooth, confident player. He was just some guy, caught in the act. His hands shot up, like he was about to say something, but I wasn't interested in hearing whatever pathetic excuse he had. And there she was, Jamie, standing in the hallway, looking like a deer caught in headlights. Her face drained of color, eyes wide. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I didn't wait for an explanation. So, this is where you've been? I spat, my voice sharp. This is where you've been hiding all your lies? She took a step back, still stunned, but I wasn't done. I tracked your damn phone. Do you think I'm stupid? You thought you could hide it from me forever? Just like that? Dave, it's not what you think, Jamie finally managed to say, her voice shaky but laced with that familiar manipulative tone. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was just lonely. A mistake. The same damn excuse. I wanted to laugh, but I was too angry. How many times had she used that line? Lonely? I snapped, stepping closer, my fists clenched. You're telling me you've been screwing around with this guy because you were lonely? After everything we've been through? All the years? The man in the living room shifted, suddenly brave enough to open his mouth. You're wasting your time, man, he said, his voice weak. She's not your wife anymore. You're just too blind to see it. Blind. Those words hit like a slap. It was one thing for Jamie to cheat, but for this guy to rub it in my face? That was the last straw. Without thinking, I grabbed his arm, yanking him toward the door. You're not getting away with this. But just as I was about to throw him out, I heard sirens approaching. That's when everything took a turn. Jamie panicked, backing away. She started shouting, trying to stop me, but I didn't listen. I couldn't. The truth had already come crashing down, and now I was the one in control. I dragged her lover out to the front yard, ready to finish this, but the police arrived just in time. One of the officers saw me holding him by the collar and immediately drew his weapon. Drop him. I froze, realizing I wasn't just the angry husband anymore. I wasn't some guy throwing a fit. I was involved in something much bigger now. In that moment, something changed inside me. I wasn't just angry, I was done. Jamie's words, her lies, everything she'd said to me over the years, all fell away like dust in the wind. The officer cuffed her lover, but all I could focus on was Jamie, standing there with that blank look on her face. You're not going to get away with this, I said coldly. Jamie's eyes widened, a flicker of something, guilt? Fear, crossed her face. But I wasn't waiting for her to explain. This was it. The end. I turned my back to her and walked away. She didn't even try to stop me. It was over. I didn't look back as I walked to my car. The headlights from the police cars lit up the street, flashing in my rearview mirror as I pulled away. The adrenaline still pumped through my veins, but it was a different kind now. My body was stiff, my hands clenched tight on the wheel. But there was no relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. It wasn't until I got home that the reality hit me full force. The house felt cold, almost foreign. The silence was deafening. The smell of dinner still lingered in the air, but it wasn't the comforting scent I remembered. Now, it felt like a reminder of everything that had been shattered. I couldn't sleep. The hours dragged on, my mind racing in circles, trying to make sense of the mess Jamie had created. How long had she been lying to me? How long had she been seeing that guy? And why hadn't I noticed sooner? The questions clawed at me, but no answers came. By the time morning came, I was done. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to apologize, to give me some fabricated excuse. I'd had enough of her lies. I grabbed my phone, and without thinking, I sent her a message, "We need to talk." Within minutes, she replied, "Dave, I'm sorry. Please let me explain. I was stupid. You have to believe me." Stupid. That word again. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't respond. I didn't want to hear it. The words were hollow now. The only thing I needed from her was the truth, but I knew better than to expect that from someone like Jamie. An hour later, she showed up at the house. She stood on the porch, her face red, her hair disheveled. She looked the same, but there was something different about her. Maybe it was the guilt hanging in the air like a cloud, or maybe it was the realization that I wasn't the same man she had left behind. The man who blindly trusted her. The man who couldn't see past her lies. I opened the door, and she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Dave," she began, her voice shaky. Stop, I cut her off. I didn't want to hear her story. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't need another tear-filled explanation. I just needed her to face the mess she'd made. "You're not going to manipulate me anymore, Jamie." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw the real Jamie. Not the woman I thought I knew, but the one who would do anything to get what she wanted. "I'm not manipulating you," she said through clenched teeth. "I made a mistake. A huge one. But I'm still your wife." The word "wife" hung in the air, but it didn't feel the same anymore. She didn't feel like my wife. Not after what I'd seen. Not after everything I knew. I don't care about your mistake, I said, my voice low and cold. What I care about is how you've been lying to me. You've been sleeping with him, haven't you? All this time, I was the fool. She took a step forward, desperation in her eyes. Please, Dave. I was confused. You were always working, and I felt alone. He gave me attention. He made me feel wanted. I never wanted to hurt you. Hurt me? She had destroyed everything. The trust, the love, gone, all of it. And now she was trying to justify her actions? I could barely keep my composure. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to walk away, to be done with this. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. So, you're telling me you're sorry? That's it? That's your big explanation? I'm sorry for what I did, she said, her voice breaking. But I still love you, Dave. I want to make it right. The words stung more than I expected. I had no doubt she thought she loved me, at least, at one point. But now, after everything? The betrayal? The lies? It felt like a lifetime ago that I had trusted her with everything. You don't get to love me anymore, Jamie, I said, the words cutting through the air like a knife. You don't get to walk back into my life and pretend like this is something we can fix. You made your choice. And it wasn't me. She looked at me with wide eyes, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. You're just going to throw it all away? Everything we had? It's already gone, I replied. You threw it away when you chose him. For a moment, she was silent. The weight of my words seemed to settle on her like a heavy blanket. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. You don't even know what you're saying, she whispered. You're angry, and I understand that. But you're going to regret this. You're going to regret letting me go. I shook my head, finally realizing what needed to be done. No, Jamie. I'm not going to regret this. I'm going to move on. I'm going to find peace again. Without you. Her face contorted, a mix of shock and anger. But I didn't care anymore. I couldn't. I turned away from her and walked to the door. The sound of her voice calling my name, pleading for me to listen, faded as I stepped outside. The weight of the last few hours felt lighter, but there was still a hollow feeling in my chest. I was done with her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't need Jamie. Not anymore. I stepped outside, letting the cold air hit my face. It felt almost cleansing, like I was shedding the last remnants of the past. The truth was, I didn't feel the anger I thought I would. The anger had burned through me already, leaving behind an unsettling calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for her to say the right thing, to apologize, to beg. It was over. But as I walked to my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of my thoughts. I pulled it out, expecting another desperate message from Jamie. But it wasn't her. It was him. The man. The one who had been with her. His name popped up on the screen, Bryce. I almost laughed. So this was his move. This was the kind of man who felt bold enough to text me now that he'd gotten what he wanted. I stared at the screen, feeling a new surge of disgust, and then I opened the message. You don't know who you're messing with, man. You don't scare me. I think you should back off. I read the words again. Something in my brain snapped, not because I was scared, but because of how goddamn audacious this guy was. Who the hell did he think he was, texting me like this? I typed back without thinking, my fingers moving faster than my brain. You don't get to scare me. You don't know who you're dealing with, either. If you ever contact me again, I'll make sure you regret it. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a boast. It was a promise. I had no intention of letting him pull any more stunts, no matter how cocky he sounded. But then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jamie. "Dave, please listen to me. I'll do anything. Please, just don't make me regret this." I closed my eyes for a second, trying to fight the urge to respond. She was still trying to manipulate me, still pretending like she could fix everything with a few words. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't need her to apologize anymore. The last thread of our marriage had been burned to the ground, and no amount of begging was going to change that. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat of the car and got in, slamming the door behind me. The engine roared to life, and I sped down the road without a destination in mind, just needing to be away from everything that had become my life. But as I drove, the reality of what had happened, what I had discovered, started to settle in. My hands gripped the wheel tighter as I thought about Jamie's betrayal. About how I'd spent years loving her, trusting her, and how easily she had destroyed it all for a fleeting moment of excitement. For him. I couldn't shake the image of them together. The way she had looked at me, that flash of panic in her eyes when I barged into that house, like she didn't even think I'd find out. But the worst part? It wasn't the affair. It wasn't the fact that she'd cheated. No, the worst part was the realization that she thought she could get away with it. That she could lie to me for so long, and I wouldn't find out. That she thought I was weak enough to just let it slide. I pulled into an empty parking lot and turned off the car. The silence inside the vehicle felt suffocating. It wasn't just the affair that was eating at me. It was the years we'd spent together, all the moments I thought were real, all the conversations I thought mattered, and now it all felt like a joke. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through the messages, trying to ignore the fact that Jamie was still blowing up my inbox. "You don't understand. Please, don't leave me." I didn't even read the rest. It didn't matter anymore. She was lying. She was always lying. But then something caught my eye. A name. A new message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. It was a text, but it wasn't from Bryce. "We need to talk. It's about Jamie." I stared at the message, confused. Who the hell was this? I didn't recognize the number, but there was something about the tone that made my stomach twist. It wasn't threatening. It was urgent. I hesitated for a second before responding. "Who is this?" The reply came quickly. "I can't explain over text, but I have information about Jamie and Bryce. It's not what you think. If you want to know the truth, meet me." I froze. This was new. This wasn't just some random person. Whoever this was, they knew something. Something I didn't know. I didn't trust it, but my curiosity got the better of me. I needed to know the truth. "Where?" The response came almost instantly. "I'll send you the address. Don't bring anyone." I stared at the screen, weighing my options. It could be a trap. It could be some sick game. But there was only one way to find out. I wasn't going to let Jamie walk away from this without knowing every dirty detail. I gripped the steering wheel again, making my decision. I was done being the fool. If someone knew more about what she was up to, I wasn't going to back down. The address popped up on my phone. It was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, in a part of town that felt off, like the kind of place where people went to hide things. I didn't hesitate. I started the car and drove, wondering what the hell I was about to walk into. I wasn't just walking into a meeting. I was walking into the final chapter of a story I never thought would end like this. And I was ready for whatever came next. The drive was longer than I expected. The streets grew darker and less familiar as I made my way into the sketchier part of town. The area was quiet, too quiet, and the buildings looked abandoned, like the sort of place you only went to when you were desperate or hiding from something. I kept my foot on the gas, not wanting to let my nerves get the best of me. My phone buzzed again. The same number. "I'm here. Come around the back." I didn't stop to think. I just followed the directions, making a sharp turn down a narrow alley behind a rundown building. The only light came from the faint glow of a single street lamp at the far end, and as I parked, I could see the outline of a figure standing by the back door, waiting. I got out of the car and walked toward the person, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't scared, at least, I didn't want to admit it, but something about this whole situation felt off. Everything about it screamed wrong. The person didn't move as I approached. I couldn't make out much of their face in the dim light, but they had their back to me, their hands shoved deep into the pockets of a worn jacket. As I got closer, they finally turned, and I froze. It wasn't a man like I expected. It was a woman. She wasn't who I thought she'd be, either. She wasn't some shady figure I could easily dismiss. She was in her mid-30s, with short, dark hair and a look in her eyes that I couldn't place, tired, guarded, but also knowing. Something about her made me uneasy. "You Dave?" she asked, her voice low but firm. I nodded, trying to stay calm, but I felt the tension in my body, the adrenaline still racing through my veins. "Yeah, I'm him." "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the one who's going to tell you the truth about your wife," she said, her eyes scanning the alley before she stepped aside, motioning for me to follow her. "But you need to keep your head cool. This isn't going to be easy to hear." I didn't move. I wasn't sure if I should trust her or just walk away. But something told me that I needed to hear whatever it was she had to say, so I stepped forward, cautiously. She led me to a small, dingy room at the back of the building. The place was a mess, furniture covered in dust, empty beer cans scattered on the floor. It was clear this wasn't some place you came to for business meetings. But when she shut the door behind us and locked it, I knew something big was about to come. She motioned for me to sit down, and I did, still keeping my distance. She didn't seem threatening, but I wasn't taking any chances. "You're probably wondering who I am," she said, sitting across from me, eyes studying me like she was sizing me up. "I'm a friend of Bryce's. I'm also someone who knows what's really been going on with your wife." "Bryce's friend?" I repeated, not sure I understood. "What the hell do you know about Jamie?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair before leaning back in her chair. "Jamie isn't the woman you think she is, Dave. She's been lying to you for a long time, not just about the affair, but about a whole lot more." "And Bryce? He's not who you think he is, either." I was getting frustrated. "Just spit it out," I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "What the hell is going on? Why are you even telling me this?" She looked at me with sympathy in her eyes. "Because I can't stand to watch you be made a fool of anymore. You're not the only one Jamie's been deceiving. And it's about time you knew the full truth." I leaned forward, my fists clenched. "I'm listening. Tell me." She glanced around, like she was making sure no one else was listening. "A few months ago, Jamie started seeing Bryce. But it wasn't just some casual fling. They've been working together on something big. She's been feeding him information about your job, about your finances, even about things that you thought were private. All of it was planned. She's been using you, Dave. You weren't just a husband. You were a tool to her." I sat back, the words crashing into me like a freight train. My mind was spinning. "What do you mean, using me?" "She's been feeding Bryce inside information to help him get ahead in his business," she continued, her voice dropping. "She didn't just cheat on you. She sold you out. And it's been going on for months." I couldn't breathe. I wanted to stand up, to walk away, but I couldn't. I needed answers. Why the hell are you telling me this? What do you get out of it? I'm telling you because I hate what Jamie's become, she said, her voice trembling. She's always been manipulative, but this is next level. I don't know what Bryce promised her, but she's been using him just as much as he's been using her. But he's a dangerous man, Dave. You don't want to get in his way. I shook my head, trying to process it all. My wife, my entire life, had been a lie. And now, the man she'd been seeing wasn't just some affair partner, he was a predator, using her, using me. I don't care what she did or why she did it, I said, the anger returning, sharper this time. She crossed a line. And now, she's going to pay. I stood up, my hands trembling. This wasn't just about a betrayal anymore. This was about revenge. About taking back what was mine. The woman reached out, grabbing my arm. Don't do anything rash, Dave, she warned. I'm telling you, Bryce is dangerous. You can't just walk in there and confront him. But I was already out the door. There was no turning back now. I didn't care what Bryce had planned, what Jamie thought she could control. I was going to put an end to this, once and for all. This wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about taking back control. I didn't care about the warnings. I didn't care about the danger. My mind was set, and there was no going back. The more I thought about it, the more the anger bubbled up. Jamie had used me, screwed with everything I thought I knew, made a fool of me, all while working behind my back with that guy, Bryce. But it wasn't just the affair anymore. No, it was the betrayal of everything we had, everything I believed in. I couldn't let that go without doing something about it. I got in my car and slammed the door, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I didn't even know where I was going, but I was heading back toward Bryce's area. I couldn't stand the idea of him walking away from this unscathed. I needed to confront him, to make him realize that I wasn't going to let him toy with my life. And if it came down to it, I'd make sure he knew exactly what it felt like to lose control. I didn't even realize how fast I was driving until I found myself pulling up to the street where Jamie and Bryce had been meeting. The place was quiet now, a far cry from the hustle and bustle it had been earlier in the day. The streetlights flickered, and I parked a little farther down, keeping the car out of sight. My heart raced as I cut the engine, the weight of the moment settling over me like a heavy blanket. I stepped out and moved quickly, keeping to the shadows as I approached the building. I wasn't sure if Jamie was there, but I had to assume she was. This was her world now, and I was just the sucker who didn't see it until it was too late. I approached the back alley, the same one I had walked down earlier, and as I neared the door, I saw a shadow moving inside the window. I froze. Someone was there. It could have been Jamie or Bryce, or maybe both. I waited, my pulse hammering in my ears. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped out. It was Bryce. He was walking toward the alley, hands in his pockets, as cocky as ever. I didn't think. I moved, stepping forward and grabbing him by the shoulder, spinning him around to face me. His eyes widened in surprise, but that look quickly turned to one of recognition, then to a cocky smirk. Well, he said, his voice oozing with arrogance. The husband finally decided to show up. I shoved him hard against the wall, my chest heaving with anger. You think you can just mess with my life and walk away, huh? He laughed, the sound deep and mocking. You really think you've got some sort of control here, Dave? You're not in charge. You never were. But you can keep playing the hero if it makes you feel better. I grabbed his shirt, lifting him off his feet, my anger rising to a boiling point. This isn't some game, Bryce, I growled. This is my life. And I'm done letting you two destroy it. His smirk faltered just for a second, but then he regained his composure. You think you're the only one hurt here? You think Jamie hasn't used me too? Don't kid yourself, Dave. You weren't the only one being played. The words hit me like a slap. I froze, staring at him. For a moment, all the anger drained out of me, replaced with confusion. What do you mean? She was using me, Bryce interrupted, pushing against my grip. Just like she was using you. You really think I'm the villain here? She's the one who got me into all this. I was just playing the game too, just like you. I was so thrown off I didn't know how to respond. This wasn't the Bryce I expected, the cocky, smug guy who had been screwing my wife. No, this was something else. A man who had been just as manipulated as I had been. You think I wanted any of this? You think I wanted to be in her web? Hell, she's the one pulling the strings. She's the one who's been running this whole thing, Bryce said, his voice dropping into something almost sad. I got caught up in it. We all did. The silence between us stretched out, thick with tension. My mind was racing. Could it be true? Was Jamie really playing both of us? Had she been using Bryce to get something, money, power, whatever she needed, and I was too blinded by my own rage to see it? Before I could respond, the back door of the building slammed open and Jamie stepped out. Her eyes landed on me, and her face twisted in a mixture of guilt and defiance. Dave, she started, but I cut her off before she could say anything else. Is this true? I asked, my voice rough, the betrayal echoing in every word. Were you using both of us? Jamie didn't answer at first. She stood there, her eyes darting between Bryce and me. Then she shrugged, as if it was nothing. What did you expect, Dave? You were always too busy with work to pay attention. I had needs. Bryce understood me in ways you never could. And the rest, it was just business. Business? I repeated, the word burning in my throat. Is that what this was? Some kind of business transaction to you? She crossed her arms, her posture defensive. You wouldn't understand. You never did. I gave you everything you wanted, didn't I? And in return, you were too busy to see anything else. My mind was reeling. I could barely comprehend what I was hearing. Everything I thought I knew about Jamie, about my marriage, was a lie. She had been using me all along, just like Bryce had said. She'd treated it like a transaction, an arrangement where I was the fool. I shook my head, feeling sick. I don't care about your excuses anymore. It's over, Jamie. I'm done. She opened her mouth as if to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned and walked away, leaving her and Bryce standing there, two players in a game that had finally burned itself to the ground. It was done. There was no going back. I was walking away from the woman I thought I knew, and I wasn't looking back. As I got in my car and drove away, the weight in my chest lightened, but the sting of betrayal still lingered. It wasn't just the affair. It was the realization that I had been living a lie for years. But now, at least, I had the truth. And with it, I could finally move on. I drove aimlessly, not really caring where I went, just needing to get away from the scene that had unfolded behind me. The headlights illuminated the empty streets, and the familiar hum of the car was the only sound in the silence. I didn't even know where I was heading, my mind was too fogged up with the lies and revelations that had just shattered everything I thought I knew. The truth was like acid, burning through the foundation of my life, leaving me hollow, but strangely, free. But even with that newfound freedom, I couldn't shake the thought of Jamie. I didn't know how to process everything she had said, or, more accurately, everything she hadn't said. It was like she had been playing a game this whole time, and I had been the last to know the rules. The thought of her casual dismissal of what we had, of the way she treated me like just another pawn, sent a wave of fury through me. How could I have been so blind? I turned a corner and found myself near a bar I used to go to, a place where I'd go after long days of work, a place I hadn't been to in years. Without thinking, I pulled into the lot and parked. I didn't even care that it was nearly empty at this time of night. I needed a drink, and I needed it fast. The bar was dimly lit, the familiar smell of stale beer and old wood filling the air. I walked up to the counter and took a seat, ignoring the empty stools next to me. The bartender, a guy named Eric who'd been there forever, raised an eyebrow when he saw me. "Rough night?" he asked, setting down a drink in front of me without waiting for an answer. "Yeah. Something like that," I muttered, grabbing the glass. Eric didn't press. He just nodded and walked away. It wasn't like I needed sympathy. I didn't want to explain my life to some stranger behind a bar. I just needed to drown everything out. So, I did. The whiskey burned going down, and for a while, I just focused on that sensation, the fire in my throat. It was better than thinking about Jamie. It was better than thinking about Bryce. Hell, it was better than thinking about how I had let my life fall apart in front of my eyes. As I took another sip, the door to the bar swung open, and I didn't even look up. But then I heard the familiar sound of heels clicking against the floor, and something in me stiffened. I knew that walk. Knew it all too well. I turned around slowly, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. It was her. Jamie stood in the doorway, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. For a second, she hesitated, then she walked toward me, her heels tapping rhythmically against the floor. I didn't move. I didn't even say anything. She stood in front of me, a mixture of uncertainty and defiance in her eyes. She was dressed in a sleek black dress, looking polished and pristine, nothing like the woman I had just seen a few hours ago, the one who had tried to justify everything with her lies. "Dave," she said softly, as if I'd somehow forgotten who she was. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Funny," I replied, my voice colder than I meant. "I didn't expect to see you, either." She winced but didn't back away. "I know what you must be thinking, and I..." "Save it," I cut her off, my patience gone. "I don't want to hear it. Not tonight." She bit her lip, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. It wasn't the kind of guilt I was used to, the kind where she pretended everything was fine. No, this was something different. This was real, raw, something even she couldn't hide. I just needed to see you," she said, almost pleading. "To explain. To fix things." I laughed bitterly, leaning back in my seat. "Fix things? After everything you've done, you think you can just walk in here and make it all go away?" She looked away, as though my words stung. "No, I don't expect that. I know I can't fix it. I don't even know if I can fix myself. But I don't want to lose you, Dave." The words hung in the air, almost as if they didn't belong to her, like she was reading a script, something she knew she was supposed to say but didn't fully believe. "You already lost me, Jamie," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You don't get to come back from this. You betrayed me. You used me. And all for what? A few months of whatever it is you were getting from Bryce?" She flinched at the name, her face tightening. But she didn't look away. "It wasn't just about him," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. "It was about me feeling like I was invisible. I don't know when it happened, but I started to feel like I didn't matter. I needed someone to see me, Dave. I needed someone to make me feel wanted." I stared at her, trying to process the words, but it didn't matter. None of it mattered anymore. It didn't matter how she felt. It didn't matter that she was sitting here, looking vulnerable, because she'd done this to herself. She had broken everything we had, and now she wanted to pick up the pieces, like it was that easy. "You made your choice," I said, standing up. "You had your fun. You thought you could play with my life, play with us. But it's over." She reached for my arm, but I pulled away, not wanting to feel her touch anymore. I couldn't let myself be pulled back into her web. "Please, don't go," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I need you." "No," I said, my voice firm, my decision final. "You don't need me. You need to fix whatever mess you've made of your life. I'm done trying to fix things that were never broken to begin with. You did this, Jamie. Not me." Without another word, I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving her standing there, the woman who had once been my everything, now just another stranger in the distance. As I stepped into the night, the cold air hitting my face, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had made my choice, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But it was the right one. The world was wide open now. It was time to rebuild. Time to move on. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't feel the need to look back as I stepped into the cold night air. Jamie's voice, pleading and desperate, echoed behind me, but it barely registered. I had shut the door on her and everything we were. The world felt both heavier and lighter at the same time, as if the weight of years spent in a lie had been lifted from my shoulders, but the empty space it left behind was vast. The streets were quiet, the hum of distant traffic the only sound accompanying me as I walked away from the bar. My mind raced, processing everything. It wasn't just about Jamie anymore. It was about me, my life, my future. She had used me, broken me down bit by bit, and all along, I had been too blind or too stupid to see it. Now, I was left with nothing but the aftermath of her actions, the wreckage of a life I thought was built on trust and love. I found myself wandering, not sure where I was going. There was no destination in mind. Just the need to keep moving. Eventually, my feet led me to a park, the familiar winding paths and the quiet solitude it offered inviting me in. The benches were empty, as they often were this late at night, and I took a seat under a street lamp, staring at the dark expanse before me. For a while, I didn't think about anything. The stillness of the night was all-consuming, and it gave me the space I hadn't realized I needed. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting to see a message from Jamie. But when I unlocked the screen, it wasn't her name that flashed up, it was an unknown number. I frowned and answered without hesitation. "Hello?" There was a brief pause before the voice on the other end spoke. "Dave? It's Bryce." My stomach dropped, a cold rush of adrenaline flooding through me. "What do you want?" I growled, my fists clenching at the sound of his name. I didn't need to hear anything more from him. Nothing he could say would change what had happened. "I know what you're thinking," he said, his tone steady but clipped. "But hear me out, okay?" I almost hung up right then, but something in his voice stopped me. Maybe it was the fact that he was the last person I expected to hear from tonight, or maybe it was because, despite everything, I couldn't quite let go of the nagging feeling that there was more to this story than I knew. I sighed. "You've got 5 minutes. "Fair enough," he replied, his voice quieter now. "I know what Jamie's done to you. I get it. But I need to explain something. I'm not the guy you think I am." I let out a bitter laugh. "You're not the guy I think you are. You've been sleeping with my wife behind my back, and now you want to play the victim?" "Let me finish," Bryce shot back, his tone suddenly sharper. "I'm not trying to make excuses for what happened. I'm just telling you that Jamie's been playing both of us. She's been stringing me along just as much as she's been stringing you along. She's using us both to get something bigger than either of us." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked, my mind racing. "You think she's just having an affair for fun?" Bryce's voice dropped lower. "She's been planning something. Something bigger than either of us can understand right now. And I think it's time you knew the truth." I was silent for a long moment, trying to process what he was saying. He sounded serious, hell, he even sounded scared. But there was no way I was just going to take his word for it. After everything Jamie had put me through, after the betrayal, the lies, the deceit, I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Why the hell would I trust you? I finally asked, my voice low and steady. You're as much a part of the mess as she is. I get it, Bryce responded. You don't have to trust me. But you need to hear this. Jamie, she's got a plan. She's been working with someone you don't know. Someone I didn't even know about until recently. And now, she's going to make a move. And it's going to change everything. My heart pounded in my chest. Who is it? Who's she working with? That's what I don't know, Bryce said, his voice edged with frustration. But I know she's not playing us for no reason. This isn't just about us, Dave. This is about something bigger. Something dangerous. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. What the hell had Jamie gotten herself into? I thought it was just an affair. Just a selfish act of betrayal, but now it seemed like there was more at play here. A part of me wanted to walk away from this, forget everything Bryce was saying and just try to salvage what little was left of my life. But the other part of me, the part that still cared for Jamie, the part that was still reeling from everything she had done, that part of me wanted answers. What's she planning? I asked, my voice tight. Bryce was quiet for a moment, then sighed. I don't know yet. But if you want to stop her, if you want to stop whatever it is she's doing, you need to act fast. I don't know how much time we have. I rubbed my forehead, the weight of everything suddenly too much to bear. For the first time in days, my thoughts weren't filled with anger or betrayal, but fear. She's not just messing around, is she? I asked quietly, almost to myself. No, Bryce answered, his voice grim. She's not. And if we don't figure this out, there's no telling what will happen next. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye, the sound of the dial tone echoing in my ear. This wasn't over. The chaos, the lies, the betrayal, it was just the beginning. And now, I was in a game I didn't understand, with a woman who had completely turned my life upside down. The pieces were falling into place, but there were too many unknowns. Too many risks. And as I sat there, the night pressing in on me, I knew I had to make a choice. Either I went after the truth or let Jamie's twisted web swallow me whole. But no matter what, I couldn't let her win. I stood there in the dark, my mind spinning. The sudden revelation that Jamie wasn't just a woman having an affair, but someone playing a far more dangerous game, hit me harder than anything else. It was one thing to be betrayed, it was another to find out that the woman I loved was part of something much bigger, something I didn't understand. My breath was shallow, my pulse racing. Everything had changed. I couldn't go back to the life I had just hours ago, the life where I thought I had the upper hand in my marriage. I had been foolish, letting the lies of a woman I thought I knew drag me through the mud. But now, with Bryce's cryptic warning in my ear, I had to act, fast. The cool night air bit at my skin as I climbed into my car. I didn't have a plan. There was no roadmap for what I was about to do. I didn't know how to stop whatever Jamie was up to, or even if I could. All I knew was that I couldn't let her, or whoever she was working with, win. The drive felt endless. My mind flickered between anger and disbelief, flashes of Jamie's face, her eyes, her voice, all running through my head like a film I couldn't turn off. But nothing compared to the way I felt when I finally reached our house. I sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the dimly lit windows. I could hear the faint hum of the television through the walls, the same sound that had always comforted me, a background noise to our routine life. But tonight, it felt like a warning. I stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached for the handle, the door creaked open on its own, and I froze. Jamie was standing there, looking at me as if she'd been expecting me. She was calm, too calm, and that only made my blood boil. "Dave," she said, her voice soft, almost soothing. "I was hoping you'd come back. We need to talk." I didn't move, just stood there, staring at her, my mind a blur of rage, confusion, and fear. How much had she planned? How deep did her deceit run? "I know what you're up to, Jamie," I said, my voice rough. "And you're not getting away with it." Her eyes flickered for a second, and for the first time tonight, I saw a hint of uncertainty. But it vanished quickly, replaced by the mask of the manipulative woman I'd thought I knew so well. "You don't know anything," she said, stepping closer, her hand reaching for mine. "Please, just let me explain." I jerked my hand away, disgusted by her touch. "Explain? After everything you've done? You're working with someone I don't even know, and now you want me to listen to your lies again?" Her eyes hardened, and I saw something in them, something darker than I'd ever seen before. "You think you're the only one with secrets, Dave? You think I'm the only one lying? This has always been bigger than us. You've been a pawn in this game from the start." I swallowed hard, the words hitting me like a slap. "What game, Jamie? What the hell is going on?" She hesitated, her face flickering with something like guilt, but then she composed herself. "You wouldn't understand. I never wanted you to get hurt, but you made it impossible to stay in the dark. You've been planning this all along," I said, more to myself than to her. "This affair, everything, it's all part of some bigger plan. I don't know what you're trying to achieve, but I'm done. I'm done with you, with your lies." Her lips twisted into a sad smile. "You think you can just walk away from me, from this life? I'm sorry, Dave, but it's not that simple." The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the tension between us. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, teetering on the edge of something that could consume me whole. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. "I've had enough of your games, Jamie," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done being your fool." She stepped back, her eyes widening. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of fear, real fear. But then she recovered, her mask of indifference back in place. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said, her voice low, almost pleading. "But I did what I had to do. I'm sorry." The apology fell flat, meaningless. Everything she'd done to me, to us, didn't deserve a simple apology. It deserved more than that. And as I turned to leave, I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay. I wasn't going to beg for answers that weren't mine to have. I was done. "I hope whatever you're chasing is worth it," I said over my shoulder. "But it's not worth losing yourself. And it's not worth losing me." As I stepped outside into the night, the finality of it hit me. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need anything from her. This was my chance to rebuild. I was free, free from the lies, free from the past. I didn't know what tomorrow held, but I knew it wouldn't have her in it. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again.